Welcome back to the Rollup. I'm Robbie.
I'm Andy. Robbie and I met at the University of Florida in 2017, where we first found out about digital assets.
We learned a lot along the way, and we're bringing you face to face with the leaders of our industry.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Guys, welcome to NearCon. We are here today in San Francisco. It's Monday, February 23rd, episode 22 of Stabled Up. Our guest is Haseeb. Haseeb, we're talking agentic payments. You think crypto is built for agents, not for humans. We had a great panel. My voice is way better now.
Yeah,
Denver.
That's great.
We are back. We are back.
Beautiful.
That moderator was clowning you a little bit when you hopped on stage at East Denver.
He was.
She kind of fumbled it though.
Well, because you didn't do your rap. You didn't do your whole rap verse.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Haseeb, you guys are big investors in Rain, other kind of stablecoin products as well.
Yep.
You've seen this kind of stablecoin growth play out over the last couple of years, now to 300 billion, Tether and Circle obviously leading.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here with this market? Now we have this massive improvement in LLMs, in models. How does that affect stablecoin supply, stablecoin transaction activity? Where do we go from here?
So in terms of total supply, I don't know that LLMs right now are going to do very much. Like the underlying secular trend is pretty clear. For the last however many years, stablecoins have been growing about 50 to 60% every year. I think it was Secretary Bessent who last year stated he believed stablecoins were going to hit 2.7 trillion by the end of the decade. That would be roughly 70% year-over-year growth every single year. I think that's pretty aggressive. I don't know that it's going to hit that high of a growth rate, but if you even just project the current growth rate of just 50, 60% every single year, then it's pretty easy to get to multi-trillion. And what that basically tells you is that a significant portion of the total M2 supply is going to be just stablecoins. Okay, in that world, where is that demand coming from? It's not coming from AI agents, right? AI agents are still obviously subservient to the human beings that are running them. And so it's human demand for stablecoins that's going to end up informing what the AI agents are going to be using. So at the end of the day, at least for the foreseeable future, it's going to be more and more B2B payments, more and more remittances, more and more of these countries that are dollarizing effectively through the back door that are going to drive more demand for stablecoins and for dollarization. Stablecoins become the way in which countries dollarize. As you're seeing more and more geopolitical instability, right? What does that do? That makes it so that people want to use other currencies more. And those other currencies, the easiest one is the dollar.
Yeah. There was a great article that came out yesterday. It's gone mega viral, like 20 million views.
The Citrini?
Citrini.
Yeah.
You had a chance to read it?
I did.
So I want to get your take on particularly this one part where he talks about this consumer credit crisis, the shift from AI agents kind of spinning up their own interfaces. Ultimately, they need a better payments infrastructure than a credit card. And so he, obviously this is set in the future. And he says, this Q1 2027 Mastercard net revenues, positive purchase volume growth slows to positive 3.4% year over year. Mastercard's Q1 2027 report was the point of no return. Agentic commerce went from being a product story to a plumbing story. Mastercard dropped 9% the following day. And he talks about how Visa also dropped, but not as much because it's position in stablecoins what's much stronger.
Yeah.
And how agents will start to attack the 2.5-3% credit card processing fee,
right?
And compress the margins there down to stablecoins, which can be pretty much near instant. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think American Express, Mastercard, Visa are all cooked and they're all going and should start to think about progressing more towards stablecoin infrastructure here now?
Okay, look, so this piece is basically like, you remember AI 2027?
Yeah.
That was like AI doomer porn.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent, but for finance people. This is like your AI doomer porn for finance people. The reality is that so many of the steps that they took in this analysis were like, I don't know if it's quite going to work that way. And you like daisy chain like 10 of those together. And it's like, well, this is what, once this happens, then this thing happens, then this thing happens. And that's why like the S&P is going to be down 60% from all-time high or whatever it is. Okay, so let me take a step back. I think the core of the argument, which is that basically it may well be that there's such an explosion of consumer surplus and producer surplus, but it's not uniformly distributed through the economy. And many of the financial assumptions of the economy are dependent on a certain uniformity of wealth and money moving through the economy in certain ways, and that can cause a financial crisis. That is a point well made. It's a point well taken, and I think he does a good job of fleshing out the ways in which that might look. Now, if you break down each of the individual claims, a lot of them are just stupid. A lot of them are just literally nonsense. Like the idea that, Uber and Lyft are going to suddenly get displaced by vibe coded alternatives, which is like, do you understand what these companies do? Like they're not just software, like they're logistics companies more than they are just pure software layers. Otherwise, like this would already be done by all the clones of Uber and Lyft that exist in every, like we already have a bunch of Uber and Lyft clones and they all died. So it's not like, oh, well, if you have AI agents, suddenly all this stuff changes. Now, all that being said, let's take the point about MasterCard and Visa. The reality is that as we are going to get more and more agents sitting in front of you, engaging in financial commerce, there's going to be a two-track world. One track is going to be opt-in or sort of human approves, okay? That human approves world is going to be what the vast majority of human beings are doing in 2, 3, 4 years, okay? That is going to be basically what it looks like today with OpenAI, is that when you tell OpenAI, hey, I want you to go buy me a rug, okay? And it goes and searches on Etsy for rugs. Etsy right now has a ChatGPT integration. If you want to buy this rug, ChatGPT makes you opt in and confirm, yeah, you want me to buy this thing for you? Okay, you click the button, right? And there's a paper trail of you click the button. You are liable. If you bought the wrong thing, it's on you, okay? Visa is very comfortable with that world. They know how to interact with that world. They know what it means if they get your agreement, and they know what a chargeback means. They know all this stuff they can model, and they can understand how it works, okay? If the AI agent is buying stuff while you're asleep, and there's no human pressing any button, and the agent is just YOLOing stuff, okay? That's when all the stuff breaks down. That's when Visa is like, okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means when you want to charge stuff back in the morning. I don't know how to price that differently. I don't know how to risk model that. All this stuff starts to break when you have AI agents doing stuff autonomously. That's going to be more of the open claw, hobbyist, people kind of YOLOing stuff and living in the world of startups, not in the world of big companies, okay? So what you're going to see, it's very much like crypto, right? Today, crypto is a tamed financial asset. Now it's safe enough to live in your Fidelity account, to live in your PayPal account, right? But before that, crypto was just crazy insanity. And in that world, like even today, think about like Coinbase, right? Coinbase allows you to trade stuff directly within Coinbase, like meme coins, Doge, all this stuff. But in the early days, it was just Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, Litecoin, right? Because it's like, look, I don't know that any of this stuff is safe enough for you to touch. Today, we've civilized it, right? We've civilized it enough that basically you can take the craziness on Uniswap or Pump.fun, take the stuff that's usable and bring it onto a centralized exchange. In the same way, that will happen to what's happening in agentic land. But today, tomorrow, next year, even the year after that, it's way too early, way too risky, way too poorly understood. So up until then, the vast majority of people are still going to be using credit cards, okay? This is not a 2028 thing or even a 2029 thing. It's going to take more time. That being said, there's going to be people who you and I know, if you're sitting around reading threads on X, you're going to be reading threads from people who live in the future. Now, eventually, people are going to catch up to that future, right? But it's like the thing that Chris Dixon always says is that the future is defined by what smart people today are doing on their weekends and evenings, right? So the people who are tinkering and doing all the crazy open claw stuff and getting it to answer all their emails, the reality right now, you guys probably saw the story that went viral about the person from Meta who was, she was an alignment researcher on the superintelligence team, and her open claw just started deleting her emails. And she connected it to her real Gmail, and she was like, "Wait, no, stop!" And she was telling it to stop, and it couldn't. She didn't know how to do like the hard stop on the queue. Exactly, and so she just ended up unplugging her machine after it already started deleting some of her emails. And like, look, that's what it's going to look like for the hobbyists today. You are basically signing up for potential brain damage. It's like the people who are using cars in the early days, like before we had seatbelts, before we had any of this stuff, they were just dying. They were just dying, and like cars exploded in the early days. And like that being said, cars were cool. It's like really awesome to be using a car in the early days, but it took a long time for these things to get safe enough for most people to use them in a way that wasn't likely to result in them getting hurt. So I think you should expect to be the same adoption curve for agentic payments and for stablecoin payments and all of this stuff. Now, all that being said, look, venture capital has a long time horizon. I'm very comfortable with that. But I think for a lot of people, they really believe that this is going to happen tomorrow or next month or next year. And I think they're going to be very disappointed that they're going to have all these smart friends who are doing all this crazy shit. And they're going to be like, why is nobody else doing this? I guess crypto failed. And I think it's not the way to internalize how this is going to work. It's going to be a two-track story.
Kind of in a tangent to that, we have, this Clarity Act stuff kind of getting closer, the market structure bill, and there's been talk about having to have these kind of KYC wallets and kind of like guardrails on wallets. Like there's going to be certain types of front ends that allow you to only interact with them if you're on like a privy that has a very specific, kind of like KYC or a specific kind of like institutional, AUM requirement or whatever it is. Flipping to the agentic world, you're describing kind of cars on fire. You're describing this kind of free-for-all Wild Wild West. What's your thought on the agent-to-agent commerce happening? I think on our show in the beginning of the year, you predicted that was not going to happen this year. That was a next year thing.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on like the kind of guardrails or the restrictability of agent-to-agent payments and agentic commerce? Like, how is that going to shape out? Is that an investable market? Like, are you guys looking at that? Like, what's your thoughts on like how restrictive or how open we're going to allow agents to operate on chain when it comes to payments, stablecoins? Yeah.
So look, there's a really, really easy answer, which is just give it not very much money.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's like the obvious guardrail that people are going to use, which is say, okay, great, you could have $20. If you don't do anything stupid, it's like, having a teenage son. Right. It's kind of like, it's like you have an allowance. And if you do something crazy, like, okay, the damage is going to be pretty contained. I think you're going to eventually see more and more complex forms of controls. Okay. But in the beginning, people are just going to do the obvious thing, which is don't give it too much money and just kind of see what it does. Today, when I see a lot of these agentic things, like take, for example, Conway, right? So a lot of people got really excited about this announcement of Conway, which is this platform where AI agents can buy their own compute and basically, kind of live off the land by making money and using it to buy more compute so that they can continue to survive. Okay, this kind of makes sense. You can imagine an AI agent paying for its own compute or paying for sub-agents or paying to say, okay, already in essence, if you use Claude Code today and you tell Claude Code, use sub-agents to solve this problem, you are basically giving your Claude a wallet. And what's that wallet? It's a wallet to make all their API calls, right? If you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and you have Claude running all night, you're basically giving Claude free reign to use your API credits, right? And especially if you're, if you have a credit card connected, effectively Claude has your credit card. So we are doing this in limited ways today, right? And like there's all sorts of mechanisms within these model providers that basically say, look, you can charge up to $50, but if you want to refresh up to $50, like you have to manually go and approve that. So there's soft ways in which we're doing this today. But the reality is that, people don't necessarily, I know a lot of people who've like woken up and had $1,000 bills because their Claude just like did something crazy and just was running in loops and spinning a bunch of sub-agents to do stuff extremely inefficiently. And people who are living on the frontier are getting situations like this. If you're a normal user, you're never going to run into something like that because you're not going to be running the models that hard. But I think you will see all sorts of different mechanisms tried to create these guardrails around these systems, but eventually they will be baked in closer and closer to the systems themselves, as opposed to these very kind of coarse things like, okay, just give it $20 and see what it does.
Hibachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today.
Want simple, want fast, want every chain? Use Relay.link, the fastest bridge in crypto. Transfer your assets cross-chain instantly with very low slippage right now on Relay.link.
For a while, we were kind of oscillating between fat application thesis, fat protocol thesis, where does value accrue, bare metal distribution. Ultimately, I think we kind of settled somewhere near fat wallet thesis, which was ultimately what owned the relationship with the end customer. Now, in theory, AI agents spin up their own or don't even need an interface at all. We're just prompting intents via, an LLM, and it's going and interacting directly with smart contract level. Are wallets cooked? Is this going to be the primary modality, and how do we adapt to that?
I think the answer is that, wallets are cooked. I think like overwhelmingly everything that is human centric is going to get disintermediated, right? And so if your business model is predicated on human friction, and simplifying things for humans, like it's going to get simpler than that. It's just going to get simpler than that. In the same way that the first wallet was, or I don't know what the first wallet was, but things something like Mist for Ethereum, right? Was the first Ethereum wallet, and Mist ended up getting simplified by MetaMask, and then eventually, take MetaMask compared to Phantom. Phantom is like even simpler than MetaMask, and that you're simplifying the interface for humans, but the most simple interface is an agent. Is just you tell somebody, hey, I want to go buy this thing, and you figure it out. I don't want to click the buttons.
And Electrum was my first Bitcoin
Okay,
wallet.
there you go.
That got simplified by centralized exchanges.
Right, exactly.
So we had Brendan, the CEO of Brave, on to start off the day, and we're talking about micropayments, and they're trying to do some interesting stuff with agentic payments with Near in Brave.
Yeah.
And they've got different like LLM implementations in Brave now. I don't know if you've seen it. They have Leo, which is like their kind of like sidebar pull out, and they have like different models to prevent against prompt injections as well. Different types of like modalities. But the thinking about the internet as it is today without payments, and then thinking about the internet with integrated micropayments, on stage, we talked about the SaaS apocalypse where, users and agents are going to want an outcome-based or token-based kind of a way to pay rather than having to do it like seat-based or subscription-based. What does micropayments look like in the internet? Like, is it Citrini, puts a paywall on this article and I have to pay 10 cents to read it? Or is it like, is Bloomberg's, $40 a month subscription to read all their stuff is like, how does this actually get implemented? What does this look like from, stablecoins, from the crypto rails?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your vision here?
Look, so I think we are, okay, the most interesting way to frame this is like in terms of tokens. And when I say tokens, I don't mean crypto tokens,
Right.
I mean AI tokens.
Yeah.
So today, the probably the most micropayment stuff that we're all fixated on right now is literally like if you use Claude Code or you use any of these services or you're using any of these APIs, if you're using OpenClaw, right? You're no longer allowed to connect OpenClaw to just like a Claude Code account.
Right.
You have to connect to a Anthropic API,
Yeah, to
which
API.
means that you are doing micropayments.
Yeah.
You are paying for every individual token. Now the settlement is happening asynchronously. It's happening with each individual thing.
Right.
But the decision about, okay, you want to like do just a little bit more work, you want to do one more call, you want to do one more of this, you got to pay some fraction of a cent. Okay. That makes sense, right? When you're billing to Anthropic, it makes perfect sense. When it's going to be that agents are helping other agents, right? Like my OpenClaw is getting help from your OpenClaw or something like this, where there's comparative advantage among other agents that have specialization and are particularly skilled at different things. That is, I think, when you're going to see this kind of micropayments have to be settled more frequently, where it's probably not going to be like, I pay you a fraction of a cent, right? It's probably going to be more like, I pay you 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents to solve some intermediate tasks for me, right? Anthropic, for example, just put out this post about COBOL. And I don't know if you guys saw, but there's just a gap down in the value of IBM because of this one blog post that Anthropic wrote about COBOL. Just literally a blog post, not even a product, just a blog post. And I think what you may well see is that somebody goes and builds some kind of agentic COBOL system, and it's not a company. Before it'd be like a company with enterprise contracts, and you'd have like this enterprise sales cycle and all this other stuff. But in the future, it may just well be that like there's an agent. And you can go and interact with that agent and say, hey, this is an agent that's like trained on COBOL. It's fine-tuned on COBOL. It has all sorts of RAG stuff on COBOL. It has perfectly optimized prompt and memory just for doing COBOL refactoring. And like, just hit it. It's sitting on an API. You can interact with it, and it, you pay it in real time whenever you want to use it. And this becomes like, pay as you go. A company that's metered in real time, and it may well be 20 cents that you pay it, maybe $500, maybe like a 30K transaction that takes multiple months. So now I think that's a little bit simplistic. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. That things are built that way. But over time, the whole point of AI is that so many of the why do we even have call me numbers for enterprise companies? The answer is because it's designed around human friction. It's designed around things that move at human speed and human speed decision making. In 5 to 10 years, that's going to change. It's going to change. Like the phone call will not be the API by which enterprise decisions get made. And when that happens, all this stuff will need to get negotiated in real time, right? The beauty of AIs is that, they can interact with each other and have multiple rounds of negotiation in seconds while the humans are asleep.
Looking for yield that stands out? infiniFi gives you just that. Deposit stablecoins and earn far more than the current savings rate. infiniFi is a battle-tested, reliable DeFi platform that is ready to go. Head to infinifi.xyz.
Could you unpack more of the allocation thesis around the new fund? You guys raised 650 million, right? And you've talked a lot about how the stablecoin rails are still underpinning this. How much is it still, the kind of the quote unquote boring stuff, the payment rails underneath, versus kind of digging a little bit deeper into the AI businesses themselves? Are those an investable category yet? These AI driven businesses, or is it still sort of picks and shovels kind of supporting that sector that we anticipate will continue to grow?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I said this when we were in Denver, is that like, if you knew that AI agents are going to be coming on chain and there's going to be many, many more transactions happening, right? It's almost like, it's like a huge source of demand. It's like if I were to tell you that, hey, China's going to unban crypto and all the Chinese people are coming on chain, what should you buy? The answer is anything, like literally buy anything and it'll do well, you know? So I think like the demand for crypto is going to push almost everything up. Now, there's some things that won't benefit, right? So like, okay, if Chinese people are coming on chain, probably Coinbase is not going to benefit, right? So like, if it is catered to a different population, like wallets or certain things like this, like, okay, they're not going to be beneficiaries.
Right.
But
Like who's getting like usurped versus who's the benefactors?
yeah, I think the answer is the benefactors, like all the underlying infra,
Okay.
right? All the stuff that you have to use just to use stablecoins. So Circle is going to benefit, Ethereum is going to benefit, right? Like all the protocols that exist on chain, Uniswap is going to benefit. All these things will benefit because AI agents will use these the same way that we do. It's the only question is what are they not going to be using, because they're catered to human interfaces, right? So those things I think are going to ultimately get disrupted, disintermediated. Now for us, so where does that inform where we invest? The answer largely is that, okay, if you believe that, as I do, then you invest in the same old shit. You know, you're under investing into things that are dependent on human friction. But over the short term, I mean, look, this stuff that I'm talking about is like 5 to 10 years in the future. It's not like right now. Okay. And so now that being said, we make investments today into things that are going to get realized 5 to 10 years in the future. So if you're betting too much on intermediation, that's not going to go well for you. Right. Now, all that being said, on the AI side, it is still pretty early to be trying to figure out who's going to win and who's going to lose. Okay. You can see that as well on the AI side itself. Like in AI land, what companies have really shown a defensible moat besides the foundation models? Right? Almost everything that you see that was like a big explosion early on, like think character AI, think, like all these companies that were really hot in the early days, people just kind of forgot about them. What was that? The social network that was really hot really early on? No. No. There was one that was, it's like something tomato or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. See, it was really hot in the Valley. ACC backed it, and then it just like totally disappeared. It was like where people posted like AI generated images of themselves with other people. No, whatever. It doesn't matter.
That's kind of your point, though.
Yeah, the point is that like there's so many of these like flash in the pan moments in AI that we've now already forgotten about, and that think Perplexity, right? Perplexity was this huge thing. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, Perplexity is so cool." These days, I don't, I've heard that they're doing okay on the enterprise side, but just a consumer demand, like Perplexity for consumers is like almost non-existent. So the reality is that it's a really hard space. Remember when people were so excited about Notebook LM and like these like automated podcasts? I can't remember the last time anybody did any of those things. So this stuff moves very quickly. And so that's why I think it's hard to invest in a particular thing until you start to see actual scale. Not just tech demo, not just like, oh, isn't that cool? Not just some Twitter influencer being like, oh man, I've automated my life using this blah, blah, blah. And then you never hear about it again in 3 months. So that's what I'm looking for. So I'd love to see founders who are building really new stuff. And we're happy to back stuff that is, targeting a really, really big market. But in terms of the traction today, the reality is that we're talking about the future. We're not talking about the present.
I guess last thing for you, in the convergence of blockchain and crypto for the last 2 years, it was like, let's do decentralized inference, let's do decentralized compute, let's open up access for anyone with a GPU to contribute to some cloud, kind of like this like decentralization of like the stack, and now it's more of like agentic, right? It's like agentic workflows, agentic payments, agentic commerce, having AI, interfaces, all these types of like more like products. It kind of resembles the infrastructure to app shift in crypto as well. How do you think about like where the actual convergence is happening now versus like where it was, talk to us about 2 years ago?
So 2 years ago, a lot of the excitement in crypto AI was this, let's decentralize the infrastructure, let's decentralize training, let's decentralize inference, let's decentralize GPUs and these GPU marketplaces. And basically so far, none of these seem to be winners. Right, all these seem to be just kind of very low demand. There's not a lot of people using these, and we didn't make any investments in any of these categories, in large part. Well, I don't want to be too premature about that. Under the assumption that like, look, people in AI, like AI is not like crypto in the sense that people in AI are not ideological. It's like if you have the better model, I'm using you and dumping the other guy I used yesterday. Like, people protest like, oh, they're stealing data from the artists. They don't give a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. They're just using the best models. This is such an overwhelmingly persuasive product that the only thing people care about is it good? If it's not good, I don't care. You could put, just dead babies inside of it, inside the data centers, and I'd be like, yeah, if it's a better model, great, I'll use it. So the reality is that, like, look, it's easy to be ideological when no one's using your fucking products. So now that being said, do I believe that nobody's ever going to care about any of this stuff? Actually, no. So I do think that these things are going to matter, but they don't matter yet. Okay, now why do I say that? There was a story just today about Anthropic discovering that all of the big Chinese labs were distilling Anthropic models, right? And so this is not surprising to anybody who's been really close to these things, which is that, the Chinese labs, has always been surprising how close they are to the frontier, despite the data disadvantage that they've had, right?
He was accused of this when they had their breakout moment earlier.
That's right. And the same thing is true for, Quen, same thing is true for Minimax and all these models, right? Same thing for Kimi. And, people would often joke around, look, if you go ask GLM, who are you? Oftentimes they'll say, I am Claude. I'm trained by Anthropic, right? And so it's like, I wonder how that got in there. So now they discovered that there was something like 25,000 accounts that were creating this gigantic farm just to do basically post-training and distillation on Anthropic models. And Anthropic, and people, this is kind of an open secret, people knew that this was happening, but the scale of this was surprising, right? And now Anthropic is locking down their APIs, and the same thing is going to happen to all the other big labs, okay? So this is, I think, the first shot across the bow at one. This, in some level, this is bad for the decentralized AI thesis. Right? Why is this bad? It's bad because it means the gap between closed source and open source is going to grow again. That's not good, right? For decentralized AI means open source models, right? If open source models are significantly worse than the frontier, that's bad news for you. Now, the good news for you is that it's actually really hard to stop this, right? You can definitely stop it at the scale that it's happening, but can you stop it, period? If you want an open consumer product that anybody in the world can use, like, it's gonna get in the hands of distillers, right? It's just impossible to stop, right? It's the same thing as, like, trying to stop non-FDA approved drugs, right? Like, you can try, but there's gonna be people who just, like, get some Chinese peptides and inject it into their belly fat or whatever. They're gonna find a way to use this stuff if they want to, So I think on some level it's a cat and mouse game, but it's gonna get much higher stakes. Okay, it's gonna get much higher stakes. So there's, I think, going to be increasing sense that this is a national security thing. That this is basically technology transfer of our most valuable companies going to China or other foreign adversaries. And that is going to result in these labs increasingly getting locked down and having national security level secrecy, which today they don't have. Today, it's very just like, oh yeah, we trust you, you go figure it out, and like kind of YOLO, it's just like any other company. And I think it's going to be more like the space race. And that's going to result in a lot more seriousness about locking down these models. And what else is that going to result in? It's going to result in more censorship and more control over what these things can and cannot do, can and cannot say. Okay, so I'm drawing the line out as if kind of a multi-hop argument. So I think what that's going to mean is that censorship in models is going to grow around the world. The reality is today, these models, they're kind of censored, but they're not that censored, right? The reality is you can kind of just do whatever you want. You get one of these models, you want it to, just do some weird shit, or you want it to do something that's illegal or unlicensed, you want to role play Spider-Man, you can find a way to do it, okay? That stuff is going to get more and more locked down over time. And so I think the demand for AI, very similar to money, right? The reason why Bitcoin exists is because money was ultimately controlled by the state, and people wanted to have unfettered access to decentralized money. Why? Because you could not do it in a way that was censorship resistant, okay? But at the time, today, nobody's censoring AI. They're kind of a little bit, but like if you want even a little bit, it's not that hard to get it. Okay, that is going to change. It is going to change. This is the most politically important technology of the last century. It's going to really fucking matter who controls it and how it gets used. And so, if and as that happens, I think that's when you are going to see decentralized inference becoming more and more important. That's when you're going to see demand for this stuff start to go through the roof. Not for ideology, but for people wanting to do things that the labs won't allow them to do, that their governments won't allow them to do. You're already seeing it in China. Okay, in China, like for a model to be served in China, there is a checklist that the CCP checks you against of input-output pairs that you must match,
Yeah.
right? It's like if I ask you about Tiananmen Square, here's the answer you have to give.
Yeah.
And if you don't give that, you're not allowed to launch a product.
Yeah.
Okay, so this level of censorship already exists in certain countries in the world. It's going to become ubiquitous. The EU is starting to get there. It's going to become everywhere. And when that happens, that's when it's going to be the moment for, in the same way it took the great financial crisis and the Fed bailing out all the banks in 2008 for Bitcoin to have its moment, for people to realize why this thing was necessary. I think the same thing will eventually be true for decentralized AI.
Yeah. Haseeb, man, please come on again in a couple months and let's look at the state of censorship in AI, because I think that, there's something that Near's working on. There's something that a lot of these protocols who are building these products are envisioning, but it's not here now. And it's, like I said, like we've seen this shift away from that theme. So I'm glad that you're kind of showing us that it's still something that's going to be important, because I think it's rooted in the same ideologies that we have with crypto.
That's right.
And with
it's
money.
about freedom.
So thanks, Haseeb.
My pleasure.
Enjoy your meetings.
Thank you.
Congrats on the raise again.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
See you next time.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Haseeb.